I will be acting as the vice president tonight since our president is absent tonight. So first thing on our agenda is roll call. Ms. Lister? Here.
Mr. Munoz is absent. Mrs. Stewart Campbell. Dr. Bonebrake. Mrs. Schmidt. Dr. Schumacher. I saw him on Zoom. Hello, thank you. And Mr. Tatum.
Here.
Our next line item is a recess to executive session, and I'm looking for a motion.
Madam Vice President, I move the Board of Education of USD 501 recess into executive session for 30 minutes to discuss confidential personnel matters, to protect the privacy of the individuals discussed, and to return to open session in the boardroom at 6 p.m. The executive staff members are invited into the executive session.
We have a second. Dr. Bonebrake.
Bonebrake. The vote is open. Okay, I'll just count you as a yay and we'll work on it while you're in exec. Motion carries unanimously.
We will return to session at 6 o'clock.
how it unfolded, I was at work in Missouri in Knob Noster. I do construction, so I was remodeling a house that me and my brother acquired, and I got a call that my baby's mother poured boiling water over my 2-year-old daughter's hands. The skin on her hands, she was like being held out like this, and it was just, I've never seen anything like it.
So many challenging situations that he was facing at that moment, and our goal was to just be a support to him through all of that. And so we told him, this is your focus on your girls, we need to get them safe and taken care of. We will help you with everything else.
Impact Avenues helped me in an impactful way in my life. They directed me to a lot of things that I needed help with, because though I've always had my kids, I've never had them alone. Well, I think you gotta pay to get on it, and you gotta go through the gate and everything, so they probably ask us, like, what are we doing over there?
Yeah, you're supposed to do this. Yeah.
You gotta do it the right way.
Yeah.
But they got this one to get on if you wanna get on one.
Let me like this. This is fun.
I try hard, and I do everything that I do really good, but the things that I don't do, I don't do. So I need a lot of help and a lot of direction. When Callie got out of the hospital, I was couch hopping. I had to stay here, and I couldn't get a job because I had so many tasks. I had classes, I had all of these different things for Child Protective Services, all these hoops to jump through. They actually told me that I can't get a job. There was no home. We were just wherever we could be at.
If a family is in crisis, to get the services they need, we would traditionally be telling them, you need to go here and here and here and here. Well, how are they going to do that? They're already overwhelmed, they have no transportation. And so we bring everybody to them. They come to one location, we help with transportation if needed, and then they can meet with all of these partner agencies at once.
When you think of a city, you think of filling potholes, of cutting down weeds, making sure sewers work correctly, and having clean water. You don't think of a city being the backbone of a program that is ensuring that people have a place to live. So other organizations have come alongside. They're doing what they do best. The city is doing what they do best. Everyone has been willing to step forward in the same direction together. And that's the only way that we're going to make long-term sustainable change.
It's really inspiring. It's really heartwarming. And this is really what we want. I think everybody wants this for our community. This is the change that we've been looking for. This is what we need to do to further improve the place that we all live and love to call home.
Our families, a lot of them don't have any support systems. They don't have anywhere to turn to. And that's exactly what Impact Avenues is. That's what sets the program apart from others, is that it is truly all of our community, all of our partner agencies working together to help these families, and we're able to make such a bigger impact because of it.
Impact Avenues is an organization full of some of the greatest people that you could ever find on earth. Like, they're more helpful than you could ever imagine. Like, they're angels, man. It's hard to find the words. Impact Avenues is, I'm at a loss for words, man. They're everything to me. I appreciate them greatly.
Welcome, everyone. Our next item is Pledge of Allegiance.
Ms. Tanner, would you do the honors, ma'am?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. So our next line item is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Do I have a second? Ms. Schmidt, I think, was our first second.
All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
Our next line of item is public hearing for exceeding the revenue neutral rate.
Adopted by the Board of Education and published in the Metro News on August 22nd, 2022. The public hearing on exceeding the revenue neutral rate was set for this evening, September 1st, 2022. The public hearing on exceeding the revenue neutral rate is now open. Is there anyone present who would like to make a comment or have any questions regarding the exceeding the revenue neutral rate? Going once, going twice. Seeing no one present to make any comments or ask any questions about the Board of Education of USD 501 exceeding the revenue neutral rate, I now close this hearing and return it to Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Whiteman. Would you please proceed to conduct the revenue neutral rate proceedings?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
The second public hearing we are having this evening is on the proposed budget adoption for USD 501 for the 22-23 school year. The notice of the proposed budget for the 2022-23 school year was published in the Metro News on August 22nd, 2022. That notice indicated that the public hearing would be held at the September 1st, this evening's board meeting. The public hearing on the proposed USD 501 budget for the school year 2022-2023 is now open. Is there anyone present who would like to ask any questions, make any comments at this public hearing on the proposed school district's budget? Going once, going twice. Seeing no one coming forward, I will close this public hearing on the proposed 2022-2023 school budget and return it to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Whiteman. Would you please proceed and conduct the hearing for the school budget, or is that our next presentation?
Madam President, we have held the two public hearings. The first one on exceeding the revenue neutral rate, and the second one on the proposed school district budget for 2022, 2023. Therefore, you may move, proceed with the agenda.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is school highlights. And we know this is one of Mrs. or Dr. Anderson's favorite things.
It is one of my favorite things. And I will tell you what, with this particular highlight, we're going to start with the video. So the video will give the appropriate introduction. And often we have a person stand behind the podium, but this person is height challenged and you wouldn't see her face. So I think what might be more appropriate is for me to turn my seat over unless you want to come in the middle. And giving a warm welcome to a lady who needs no introduction, Miss Adeline Tanner. I'm going to turn it over to Miss Tanner. You should know at the convocation about 6 or 7 years ago when I started, I look around all summer for a student that'll just knock you off your knock you off your seat. And this young lady was performing in a couple of plays, actually. She had the star leading role and she was in 2nd grade. And that is how her name came to my attention. We're going to hold the certificate for just a moment and we're going to turn it over to our school board who will have questions unless Miss Tanner, as we talk about belief and all that you've done, you're so impressive. Is there a comment you want to make before we open it up to them to ask questions? Okay, we're going to turn it over to the school board. And you're certainly welcome to have a seat, but I think if you prefer to stand and walk around, you go right on ahead. Madam Chair.
you were so impressive that day. And your message was so strong and touched so many hearts that I just know for a fact that I have somebody on my panel here that is going to want to ask you a question. Would that be all right with you?
Of course.
Do I have any questions from my school board for this young lady?
Ms. Tanner, kind of scary to think what you might accomplish, but what do you want to become?
I want to become an actress.
Surprise.
Really?
Bravo.
Mr. Tatum.
Ms. Tanner, thank you for joining us this evening. I can say that having been there right at the front of the auditorium when you gave that speech, it was just as moving for me watching the video as it was that day when you originally did it. And I can tell you that these are things that you'll want to brag about and show your kids someday. I didn't have a question, just a comment to, I think you're going to do great things. Keep doing what you do. I think you're going to be a fantastic actress. You already are. And just keep up the really good work. You make all of us here at the Topeka Public Schools very proud of you.
Thank you.
Do I have any other questions for this young lady? Mr. Campbell.
Oh, you pumped me up that day too. I was sitting with the other board members like, yeah, it was really, really great. And knowing that you want to be, well, you're already an actress. You've already been in plays right now. Okay. So, Topeka Public Schools has a great theater department when you get in middle school, when you get in high. Did you know that? Do you go to plays like at Topeka West, Topeka High, Howard Park?
Yes, I'm going to Topeka High when I get older.
Great. Are you also going to be a cheerleader?
No.
I think you'd be good at that. No. Oh, really? Okay.
No.
Okay. Not into the sports. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you in many plays.
It's gonna be fun.
Miss Tanner, are there certain people that you would like to thank for your excellence that might be in the room?
My mom.
And would your mom stand up and tell us what she does?
Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Bully. My name is Gabrielle Tanner, and I'm the very proud mother of this little peach right here who is being a little shyer than normal tonight. So I'm a little surprised, but I also have the pleasure of being the principal of Sheldon Head Start and Pine Ridge Prep Preschool.
Yes, and I believe you have representatives in the room from your school building that you go to now. Who would that might be?
Miss Pomeroy. Yes.
Miss Pomeroy, we want to thank you for creating such excellent students like this.
Adeline makes it so easy. I've known her since she was running around the halls of Bishop with Miss Tanner and I, when Miss Tanner was our instructional coach and I was the principal over there. And so I've known her since she was very little. So I'm not at all surprised that this is who she's growing into be. It's just been a pleasure to watch her. She gets older, and the fearlessness with which she performs in our musicals, and having the lead as a second grader in our 2nd through 8th grade production at Jardine Elementary and Jardine Middle School as the lead. And she was Charlie in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So she was a male also. So an actress she shall be. And so she's an amazing student. So glad that she's a scholar in our building. So glad that we get to have her ray of sunshine. And we're very lucky to have her in Topeka Public Schools. So
I would agree with that. And what a beautiful video they've made to use to let others know how wonderful Topeka Public Schools are. and how wonderful our students such as you are. So thank you for coming out tonight and being with us. We so appreciate all your enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Right, shower. We're going to talk about our how we got school supplies this year. About how this occurs, I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Delmar White of New Mount Zion Church, who had a vision of bringing a lot of churches together in support and service to Topeka Public Schools. In addition to Pastor White, there might be others in the room, so he's going to tell you a little bit about the organization, the name of it, and what happened in early August that led to countless numbers of young people being served. Can we give Pastor White a warm welcome as he comes to the microphone?
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Anderson, and to the school board and to you, our president. Real quick, I'm a Baptist preacher, so I say that hesitantly, but I promise to be quick. As Dr. Anderson mentioned, a few years back, we decided we held at our church through our community outreach coordinator, Lisa Davis, came up with the idea. We wanted to give back to the community, we wanted to help parents and those who are providing care for students with assistance with school supplies. We started out on our grounds and quickly discovered that we had outgrown, which is a good thing, but we needed space. Our first year in hosting the back to school program, we hosted 1,400 people on our grounds, and we did haircuts, we did backpacks, we did all sorts of things that happened. And so we decided then to pull together. We're better together is kind of my mantra. So we gathered with other churches and community organizations and pulled together and came up with the name. I always say it wrong, so I'm going to read it right off of the page. United for a Successful School Year is the organization that we've gathered together. So this year, we had 15 organizations, 10 of those were churches and 5 other community organizations that gathered together. And we were afforded the opportunity to host the event for the second year at Highland Park High School. We were in the big gym this year. We started out last year in the smaller gym, challenging, but it worked. We made it work. And so at last count, we had 1,600 people who were on the grounds at Highland Park this year. We served 880 students, or scholars, as we like to say, who came through. And then we ran out of supplies, which is a good thing to happen. And another community organization was doing the same thing. And so we said, go over there. But we are excited and always grateful for community connection, and also 501 for the work and support that you all have given and continue to. I just have to shout out the custodial staff there at Highland Park. They went above and beyond to accommodate us from the day before the event and the day of the event. So thank you and kudos to all those who helped out.
That's right. Actually, acknowledgments for you, sir. And this is always a little awkward. So did you come over here in the middle? You don't mind, sir. And the first says Pastor Delmar White for outstanding leadership in organizing the 2022 United for Successful School Year Supply Giveaway. The second, actually, focus on thinking. So to the United Community for a Successful School Year, we thank you for your service to all of us. And we look forward to next year continuing to be bigger and better together. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ask all of those that are in attendance, can we give Pastor White another thank you for the 800 those who are in attendance. Our school board will be taking pictures. Can we take a brief recess of 3 minutes? And we always say students first. And did I capture everything in terms of highlights, sir? All right. So Miss Tanner, can you come on up with your mom and your principal? And our board will stand right behind you and get that photo. And then we'll ask Pastor White to take a photo with the board if you would, sir. Well, that does conclude our highlights. I do want, as Ms. Pomeroy is transitioning on out, her school hosted yesterday. Church Resurrection has given so much in our presentation this evening about homelessness. They have been quite the funder of what we call Impact Avenues, but it has another name in Wyandotte. It's the largest Methodist church in the world, I believe. And the wraparound services and supports, they wanted to see what that looks like in action. How do you support important people? They spent part of the afternoon, and Mrs. Pomeroy had an event at K-State where she trains other principals, and her team did a phenomenal job of just being who they are as the day was spent really learning in preparation for a leadership seminar in Kansas City. So they really taped what does leading look like at a school that pours into people. I didn't have an opportunity because you came in at the very end, but thank you. It was exceptional and just will blow you away, as I believe this footage is being used in a variety of ways to train leaders across Kansas City and Kansas. Thank you. That does conclude our highlights. She did an awesome job. I believe that concludes our highlights, Madam Chair. I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Our next line item is public communications. Ms. Lister? Hey, disposition of business by consent, financial report.
Motion?
I
Okay.
need a motion.
All right. I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special project and purchasing contracts for and on behalf.
Do I have a second? Mr. Tatum?
Thank you. The vote is now open. Microphone right? Oh, perfect. All votes are in. Motion carries unanimously.
One down. We are now up to our superintendent's report.
This evening, we'll be talking about strategic plan item goal 4, objective 4.1, which focuses on homelessness and student well-being is the topic. We're going to open up the strategic plan. So anyone that is listening that wonders, where is that? This is our time to remind people where that is. We're going to go to goal 4, objective 4.1 and read that. So you will be reminded of what items are in there. One of the things that we tackled about a handful of years ago was really to reduce homelessness and poverty in Topeka. We felt then and still feel now that schools are the center of the community and certainly should be addressing poverty and contributing to the economic vitality of Topeka. With that, under student well-being, it says to annually implement comprehensive services for homeless students and families. And with that, it talks about sustainability. During that particular year, there were approximately 600 homeless students at that time. I share that with you so you have context as this evening's presentation begins. The key indicators that are listed, I won't read through all of those, but you do see throughout this document, as we scroll on down, you'll see the word impact avenues and KSDE grant funding and a homeless coordinator. Those are all things that are ongoing that we put in place at that time. We've tweaked those slightly, but these are our partners partnering with the city. Those are all new things that we did in the strategic plan. With that introduction, we're going to take that on off. We have two women here with us this evening, both Ms. Franklin and Ms. Mills. They are two social workers, and one carries the role of social worker and homeless coordinator. Ms. Mills carries the role of social worker, and she really supervises the social workers across the district. So the two in tandem are kind of co-coordinator supervisor people. One focuses on homelessness and the other focuses on primarily mental health and other services. At this time, I'm going to ask them to come forward. And Miss Franklin. Now, I told Miss Franklin, well, you can be online if you have things in the evening and social work stuff. Then I saw she was in her office. I said, oh, well, come on in the room. You're in your office? And she ran on up here. So thank you, Miss Franklin.
Okay. Okay, okay, we're gonna start with the slides. Okay, I'm Ms. Franklin. I'm this homeless coordinator for Topeka Public Schools since the spring of 21. So the information I'm gonna share on this slide would be from the last 5 years. But I did want to just comment, Dr. Anderson gave you a little brief overview about Impact Avenues. It is a program that we're a partnership with. Topeka's Public Schools is one of 38 partners, and we're probably a primary partner because a lot of the referrals come through the school district. And the purpose of that program is to help families seek permanent housing solutions And if they work with the program and go through it, they are right now averaging about 97% or remain housed. So that's pretty good. They serve as a single point of service for families, providing intensive case management services, and then services are available to families. Case management services are available until those students graduate if they need it. Once they're initially enrolled, they are connected with Impact for about 12 months, a commitment, or until they found housing, either one, whichever comes first. But then they'll keep continuing. If they need to come back, if they need more help, they'll go back in. That graph there shows you the homeless students trending. We were trending down from 2017, which is the numbers I think Dr. Anderson just shared. We were averaging around 600 homeless students in the district. And then you see it was going down to the end of 21. And then last year it started going back up. And so just as you probably already know, nationwide, I mean, we suspect the pandemic plays a role in that. A little bit more stable when they were getting child tax credit, stimulus checks, and whatever else they needed. So now at the end of last year, we're starting to go back up a little bit. We were around 238 at the end of last year. I think in 19, it was 219 in May. So then it started going back up. And then I ran the report Monday. As of Monday, we were already around like 170. So again, I think that's a good indicator. It has nothing to do with the district. I think it's just the state of the economy. So Topeka Public Schools has been a partner with Impact since it began, which is before I got this position, but we've been a partner the entire time and continue to be. Since that time, we have referred 172 families to the program. And then now we have, well, I think we've always had, but we have regular communication with myself, with the Impact Avenues team. We meet monthly, which is helpful for finding families that may not have connected with them or followed through, or vice versa. If I'm trying to I finally have a family and they're ready and I can follow through. So we meet monthly and we found that to be helpful last year. But we, communicate all the time. And then that partnership with Impact, because we're in the business of educating here. So that allows them to handle the social service needs for families and us to focus on education and making sure we're removing barriers, which is my job for the students to attend school. One thing I will add to this, I didn't put on the slides, she probably wouldn't want me to, but I think Topeka Public Schools is really, this is me speaking as a parent now, but it's truly blessed to have Dr. Anderson, because I think she's very passionate about reducing homelessness in this community. And I say that because that last part there, even though we focus on education, I think we really kind of go above and beyond to make sure our students have what they need. Their basic needs are met, whether it's providing food, clothing, whatever we need to do. She's offered people jobs. I think we do, what we can to help these families. And I think we're going to show a short video that Impact has created. And this is one of your Topeka Public Schools fathers.
I was at work in Missouri and Knob Noster. I do construction, so I was remodeling a house that me and my brother acquired. And I got a call that my baby's mother poured boiling water over my 2-year-old daughter's hands. The skin on her hands, she was like being held out like this, and it was just, I've never seen anything like it.
So many challenging situations that he was facing at that moment, and our goal was to just be a support to him through all of that. And so we told him, this is your focus on your girls, we need to get them safe and taken care of. We will help you with everything else.
Impact Avenues helped me in an impactful way in my life. They directed me to a lot of things that I needed help with, because though I've always had my kids, I've never had them alone. Well, I think you gotta pay to get on it, and you gotta go through the gate and everything, so they probably ask us, like, what are we doing over there?
Yeah, you're supposed to do this. Yeah.
You gotta do it the right way.
Yeah.
But they got this one to get on if you wanna get on one.
Let me like this. This is fun.
I try hard and I do everything that I do really good, but the things that I don't do, I don't do. So I need a lot of help and a lot of direction. When Callie got out of the hospital, I was couch hopping. I had to stay here and I couldn't get a job because I had so many tasks. I had classes, I had all of these different things for child protective services, all these hoops to jump through. They actually told me that I can't get a job. There was no home. We were just wherever we could be at.
If a family is in crisis, to get the services they need, we would traditionally be telling them, you need to go here and here and here and here. Well, how are they going to do that? They're already overwhelmed. They have no transportation. And so we bring everybody to them. They come to one location, we help with transportation if needed, and then they can meet with all of these partner agencies at once.
When you think of a city, you think of filling potholes, of cutting down weeds, making sure sewers work correctly, and having clean water. You don't think of a city being the backbone of a program that is ensuring that people have a place to live. So other organizations have come alongside. They're doing what they do best. The city is doing what they do best. Everyone has been willing to step forward in the same direction together. And that's the only way that we're going to make long-term sustainable change.
It's really inspiring. It's really heartwarming. And this is really what we want. I think everybody wants this for our community. This is the change that we've been looking for. This is what we need to do to further improve the place that we all live and love to call home.
Our families, a lot of them don't have any support systems. They don't have anywhere to turn to. And that's exactly what Impact Avenues is. That's what sets the program apart from others, is that it is truly all of our community, all of our partner agencies working together to help these families, and we're able to make such a bigger impact because of it.
Impact Avenues is an organization full of some of the greatest people that you could ever find on earth. Like, they're more helpful than you could ever imagine. Like, they're angels, man. It's hard to find the words. Impact Avenues is, I'm at a loss for words, man. They're everything to me. I appreciate them greatly.
As the video concludes, so new board members who are not as familiar with what impact is, and when she'll be answering questions that you may have this afternoon or this evening. One of the things that Impact does, they have something called Impact Thursdays. You walk in homeless, you leave with a home. That doesn't happen. And I so appreciate a parent. Where do your children go to school? One just graduated from. So with that, hearing it from a parent as well as a person that's part of our staff, Impact literally transforms lives long term. So these Impact Thursdays, I so appreciate the comment about me, but really a lot of people. On that video, you saw Advisors Excel as a funder. You saw Marcia Pope as a funder, and I am privileged to serve on the Topeka Community Foundation board. And those boards are quite intentional. The GTP and the city, those are funders. So Impact started with people from Wyandotte just asking could they meet with myself, Mayor Feaker, and at the time, the mayor at that time. And so the three of us just sat at where we were TRN, and they said, here we decrease homelessness by 50%. And Mayor de la Isla and said, how did you do that? They asked, would we be willing to replicate it? Absolutely. So, well, you're going to have to come out and do a kind of a press conference as the superintendent, issue a charge, as the mayor, issue a charge. Absolutely. And that's how it kicked off. And from that, it fast forwarded to all of these people coming together, landlords and service providers and the city all saying what they would do. So literally people walk in one day, it sounds almost too simple to be true. She can answer what this looks like. Homeless, and they leave with a home and long-term sustainable support. So the community of Topeka, according to Matt Pavarnik, at least at our last GTP meeting, shared that the homeless population has decreased by approximately 40% in Topeka, Kansas, which is pretty amazing. quite believable because we know we went from 600 to approximately 200 families. And even though we're at 176 now, and that number will go up and down as we're seeing the impact of the pandemic, we anticipate somewhere around this time, we're in the hundreds when we start because we recertify families, they reapply. And we have a lot of families from Ukraine that when you're doubling up someone, we have about 30 families, you may well qualify for McKinney-Vento as homeless. So we have some unusual situations this year, but we anticipate that with continued wraparound support, those that are in need of a home will be able to move into that and it will be sustainable. It's had quite the impact. I'm going to turn it over from the video that you've seen to Ms. Franklin. First of all, thank you for having me. So I'm going to turn it over to the board to entertain questions.
Does anybody on the board have questions? Yes, Ms. Schmidt.
Thank you. Just that's amazing. As a former site coordinator at Communities and Schools, that was at Ross Elementary, you know, that, I mean, some of our families go through things that most of us can't even imagine. And for them to show up to school and wanting to learn when they've battled so much to even get there is amazing. So thank you for the work that you do. How do you identify candidates for this program?
Yes. So starting in July, usually I start training staff. So we train all the social work staff on the identification requirements for the state, which is pretty much, as Dr. Anderson mentioned, families that are doubled up, sleeping in their car. They could be pending eviction. Sometimes that'll qualify depending on where they're at in that stage of it. They could be living out in campgrounds, living in trailers, and I'm not talking about a modular home or anything like that, just like a FEMA trailer or a trailer that's not meant to be living in, things like that. So that's usually how we identify them. And a lot of times it just comes from in the schools, the kids. Parents are becoming more aware of the program though, and they'll call sometimes and just let the school know, hey, we don't have anywhere to go, or can you guys help us? And then they'll get referred to me. And then also the Topeka Rescue Mission, obviously, is the homeless shelter. I go over there in the beginning of the school year. I'm over there like several times a week because I'm helping to make sure we catch families that did not get enrolled. And so if they're at the homeless shelter, that automatically qualifies them, or the domestic violence shelters.
It's all the districts. So you're funding her role and the grant is funding her role, but we know homelessness is not just a Topeka Public Schools issue. So when this model is really about how do we help everyone? So while we're the backbone, or the city is the backbone, we provide the staffing to get the names. That's how they get them. They get them from us. And she gets them from any social worker in any community. They send those to her, to Ms. Franklin, and then Ms. Franklin sends those that are appropriate for the program to the program. And some people aren't ready. I mean, that's part of our screening. Some people aren't ready to move out of homelessness.
That's correct.
Or to stop behaviors that may have led to homelessness.
Yes, to participate in impact, they do have to have some level of readiness to be housed, which can include gaining income, and then also being able to sustain a home. That's why they keep them on as case management for about a year. That way, if they start slipping or rent's not getting paid or something, they kind of go back in and start giving them the tools, the life skill tools, again, to help them. And then we help a lot with that as well, the schools, like just that constant communication.
Mr. Tatum.
Thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate the work that you do. As someone that also shares in the heart that you have for the folks who need the most support in our community, and that's often people without a permanent home. With that in mind, and looking through the booklet that's been made available to us board members, this is pretty eye-opening. And I definitely like to learn more. So I plan to follow up with you at some point in the near future, but just kind of wondered for our purposes now with all the activities and all the different things that you guys are trying to impact. Are there things that you find that are still lacking that you all still need support with?
District, I think probably nationally, transportation is an issue. We continue to find creative ways to get these kids around. And sometimes even the parents, sometimes we even have to help with that, especially if it's a little one that, I have one at the mission right now, as a matter of fact, that don't want to ride that van. And so it's a lot of kicking and screaming, and I'm thinking to myself, I may go over in the morning, just ride along with them just because mom can't ride because they can't take her back over there. So just trying to figure out little creative ways with that. I also think there's a gap in, or not a gap, but a need for more partners, that's directly tied to help with the homeless, needs. Because again, as the, I don't know that it's over, but as the pandemic is winding down or money's going away, I think we're seeing those needs come up. I was talking to Miss Mills, that's something I've noticed a lot this year. It seemed like the needs are really high for these families that we are getting. Besides being homeless, they need everything. They need help with everything.
Are you, just to be clear, are you essentially meaning that during the pandemic, some community partners that you did have kind of stepped away and now?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. No, I'm just saying that's just something I've noticed that we probably need to do more outreach to get more churches and stuff involved. Like I know last year we had a church that was donating gift cards, and that was extremely helpful. Dr. Anderson was generous enough to give most of those to me to kind of manage, and that came in so handy with families that had needs. And so just things like that, just extending partnerships that can help. We were talking about barbers, getting some barbers to help. We got girls that need their hair done. There's disasters.
Like a TED team, those backbone agencies and all those partners are still assisting, and they're giving and giving even more. And what we're seeing is because of the pandemic, some of the things that you kind of take for granted, like a haircut, things like that, those needs continue to grow and have continued to grow. Even getting a mask, which we give those at school. But if they need them in other spaces and places, again, we provide that. She said it best that they need everything. Taxes, all of the, getting your taxes done once you do get a job. So one of the items that, but our partners have continued to be strong. We have same partners we've had before. We have even more partners. In fact, tomorrow, Lewis Toyota has given money for about 30 students to have new uniforms. And so they're going to actually go on a field trip at JCPenney shopping because of Lewis Toyota. Thank you, Lewis Toyota, for listening. But, people like that are continuing to step up. I will say one of the strategies has continued to be, she's a parent, that's not by accident. We have intentionality of hiring our own people, alum and parents. So approximately 10% or more of our staff are parents by design. So when she said she's hiring homeless families that were homeless, well, part of what Reverend Feeker and I, talked about was just, can we have people in a program where once they're getting back on their feet, we interview them if they have the skill and ability. Now we've tried them to say for 2 or 3 weeks, if you can volunteer and it goes really well, then we're going to move you into those roles. So 10% or more of our current staff, we're really recycling that economic dollar. Are people that are parents currently, and that's been the best way to just love on our kids, is to continue to support that. And certainly alum, they have priority. So that in and of itself brings more people to the table to provide those needs, but they've been generous. And Antioch gave the gift cards, and we're continuing to get resources in that way. Turn it back over to Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Stewart Campbell.
So, wow, thank you. Your work is amazing, and it must be so rewarding, challenging, but so rewarding. I have a few questions. My first is, how do you prioritize for service? Like, how do you kind of rank who needs you like faster?
I don't believe I rank them. If they're homeless, they have the same access to me as anyone else, or not just me, anyone in the district. And so we help them if they have high needs or urgent needs, then that's going to be a little different. If their house just burned down and they're in crisis right now, then obviously we would be, implementing some different steps. But any homeless family has access the same. Prioritize them or rank them.
I happened to share a space at night with her, and parents come to the door. Miss Franklin, do you know where Miss Franklin is? And I mean, it's all day, and I've never seen her turn away anyone. And she has this running list, and they call back, and they're come back, and they get services eventually. So I think on a daily basis, I don't think you leave one call unanswered. Maybe a call from me, but not from a family. Right.
I'm thinking of like in my position with the migrant education program, very common for 2-3 families to be living together. So of course they qualify for McKinney-Vento. So somebody pairing up with another family who has stable housing, maybe they would, of course, you're still going to help them, but somebody, you know, in a tent.
Right, absolutely. And I think Dr. Anderson did point out that, you know, it depending on what the family's needs are in that situation. Yeah, you're correct. We would, if they're doubled up, like some of them, they have to be ready to be housed. So some of them, that's just kind of how they're living right now. And they may have a situation, maybe they're living with grandparents and they can stay there for a little while. The whole family can stay there for a while, you know, a year or something like that. So that's wouldn't be a rush to get, they're not in a rush. We would still do the same steps, still reach out to them, still try to refer them the impact. We would still do the same steps to try to get them their own space and their own permanent house. But they may not be in a rush and be like, you know, we're fine for now and we can't make them. So that's a good question. Yes.
You have to love a social worker spirit. How do you prioritize? I just address all the needs. It's pretty much what she shared.
Yeah.
But, you know, safety is the main piece. So for example, there have been fires, you know, over the course of the summer and last year, those families were addressed first. If someone is in danger, as you heard on the video, that gentleman's situation, that would be a higher priority than something else. So safety kind of comes first. But to their credit, on the weekends and the evenings, they certainly try to ensure that everybody gets called back that day between these two people. Kind of move Miss Mills up. She's quite the special woman who is the other part of the tag team who's been around for about 20-30 years in this work of social work, but primarily in Topeka Public Schools. So where appropriate, I'll just say, you know, share a little bit because some of these pieces, there's so many legs you wouldn't know they exist. So just trying to think of what items to be sure to bring up. The new component, NAMI, is an organization that was mentioned here that Ms. Mills coordinated the meeting with, which is all about mental health and training parents and training families. So that's going to be another leg to this stool of how do we integrate that with what we're doing on Impact Thursdays. Chair.
Anyone else? I had a question. I'm still trying to formulate how you work in 501. You're an employee of 501. And your organization that helps everyone is a 501 organization. Am I correct there?
So Impact Avenues is through the city of Topeka. 501 is a partner, a primary partner, I would say, because most of the referrals, the students have to be identified as homeless through 501 to participate in that program.
However, Ms. Franklin is the homeless coordinator. You are correct for Topeka Public Schools.
Yes.
And her organization really is Topeka Public Schools. So it's not just Impact Avenues that she does. You know, the grant that we get for homeless services when students at any school, Ross or anybody that becomes homeless, she coordinates their services, registering kids at the rescue mission. But for Impact Avenues, we do say for every district, you know, all the neighboring districts, now they have less than 30% free lunch. And I think the lowest might be 5% in one district and maybe the highest might be 30%. I'm not even sure if they've hit that mark, but they can refer someone to this role. And we have committed her role to be that agent for the Impact Avenues program.
Thank you. And then we also search for grants to sustain the program through Topeka Public Schools.
Yes, we get the state grant, and also this year we have some funds through the American Rescue Plan. We got a couple of grants from that.
And those probably disappear in a few years.
Yes, I think they're 25.
Right. However, Ms. Walls can speak to the grants overall. Now, we've had these well before the pandemic, and we still have them, and we'll continue to have those. Again, Impact Avenues is funded by generous donors beyond these grants.
Right.
So that comes from all outside agencies, which when you think about it, that's pretty remarkable and special. Both Wyandotte and Topeka, it's the only model of its kind anywhere. It's pretty incredible. And that reduction in homelessness in one city, honestly, that should be national news of a 40% in homelessness. Doesn't mean that poverty is completely gone. You can be in poverty and not be homeless. But it does really mean that we're housing more people than we were. Ms. Walls, can you speak to the grants and just an example of some of the grants that help our homeless?
Yes, so we have the federal Kenny Vento homeless student grant. It's an annual grant that we've received for years. And then we also have a portion of title dollars that we allocate to homeless as well.
Well,
it varies from year to year. And you know, with the ESSER dollars or the American Relief Act, they received quite a bit more this last year. And so it just varies from year to year.
It just seems that as the years progress, the community relies on the school system for community assistance. I don't think that's quite right. We're supposed to be educating children, not saving people's lives. Now, that's very admirable, and I'm glad they're doing it. But we need a bigger force doing it. Our budget, we get unfunded mandates from the feds to support special education, and the state doesn't fund it. We're $3 million short every year. So we have to take it out of the general fund and somebody else has to do without. It just,
The level of opportunity certainly is high for us to meet in regards to services. There's no doubt about that. Even as we talk about the legislative agenda this year, the other superintendents and I were meeting as we talk about special ed and fully funding special ed so we can free up other dollars. So we're pushing on that. But we will say schools are the center of the community. I mean, really, when you think about it, everybody sends their child to school. So we have this captive audience to be able to say, how can we make sure that you thrive and survive? And I know Ms. Mills was going to add to that a little bit.
Yes, and I appreciate totally Dr. Goldberg, but I want to remind you and remind this very distinguished board that we cannot educate a child that is hungry, that is tired, that has so much trauma in their life that they're not available to hear what our teachers that are working so hard. And when that number is so high in every classroom, we have to do something. And when I watch, and I am so proud that our superintendent and this board approved this position, because I've been in this district a long time and running around looking for services in this community as one person, 620 in the day at Williams. I don't think we're that high any longer, students. There's a percentage of those students that every year, that percentage is of homelessness that make it very difficult for that child to be there, be available and ready. But I do appreciate that dollar that you bring to the table and know that we're giving. But I think these students can become taxpayers if we can reach them. And if they can begin to learn some of the curriculum and the skills that our teachers are teaching.
communities put the burden on the school system. They ought to be helping out more.
Comments for this evening. We thank you all as we shared a little bit about Impact Avenues, and they just celebrated their third year, the 3-year anniversary. It was 3 years ago when they came to meet with us about, do we want to tackle this? So we're excited about that. Thank you, ladies, for all that you do. Thank you.
We want to thank you. You've touched our hearts for sure tonight, and I know many families. Thank you. Dr. Anderson? We're ready to move on.
Yes, ma'am. That does conclude our presentation this evening.
We're into action items.
I move the board approve resolution 23 as presented. This will be a roll call vote. I'll say your name and then you let me know your vote. Mr. Munoz is absent. Mrs. Boley?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Bonebrake? Thank you. Mrs. Schmidt? Thank you. Mr. Tatum? Ms. Stewart Campbell? Dr. Schumacher?
Yay.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, board, and that support. Our next action item. Approve and adopt the 2022-23 school year budget.
I move to approve and adopt the 2022-23 school year budget based upon the requirements of Kansas law. There a second? Schmidt, thank you. The vote is open. By hand, okay. Yay. Thank you. All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, board. Our next is board member comments. Dr. Bonebrake, would you like to start?
Last spring, I live fairly close to Jardine Elementary. And there was a traffic jam around the dangerous road. Principal was getting violence threats. There was road rage incidents. It was crazy. I mean, there must have been 150 cars lined up for blocks. And kind of concerned about that. Plus, I don't like principals getting death threats. That being the case, instead of parents feeling like they're getting waterboarded, they now feel like they're in line at Chick-fil-A. Instead of angry gestures towards the school guards, they're now waving and saying hi. Well, Dr. Gray and I went over there last spring and made a couple of suggestions. And school gets out about 3:40. And there was a line of cars until 4:30. People were in line at least half hour, sometimes 45 minutes. Well, I went by 15 minutes. I've just been regular 15 minutes for the last 3 days after school opened. There's no line. And they've made further tweaks, but just sometimes if there's a problem, if somebody just looks at it from a different direction, sometimes it helps. That homelessness, whatever, I just wonder. Well, Dr. Gray was very beneficial and helpful. I wanted to see him tonight, but he hasn't. So, sorry.
Interestingly enough, Madam President, I have no comments. Letting you guys off easy tonight.
Oh, yes, right. Dr. Schumacher. Would you like to have a board comment?
Yeah, I'd like to just say a few things. Mine won't be as short and sweet as Mr. Tatum's, but I appreciate the ability to join via Zoom tonight and appreciate Mr. Gowan and Ms. Lister for helping me set that up. right now I'm appreciating that we continue to do the test to learn so that the one member of my family that's a child that's still COVID free is going to school. I want to say thank you to Mr. Minky and Mrs. Manfield for all their work. Ms. Stewart Campbell and I met with Mr. Robbins and Mr. Minky. I think maybe almost 2 weeks ago, the day after our last board meeting, just to talk about budget 101, maybe. I think maybe we're ready for budget 201 now. And that was very helpful. And then I also had technology committee. I think that was last week, where we talked about the digital equity, Tyler Sis, and some of the changes with partnering with Infinite Campus, and then just some of the stuff about instructional software and trying to do a crosswalk between the software. And then exciting thing going on in our middle schools, Project Lead the Way, where they're learning some good computer technology stuff. I think my only other thing as something to maybe look at, at a future time, and Ms. Bully, you had texted about, maybe something for DCAC as far as studies. We talked maybe last board meeting, maybe the one before, about transportation. Maybe how transportation is affecting our schools on the east side and the central and the west side. Maybe looking at that, and are there ways to look at, almost Mr. Bonebrake alluded to, ways to look at things a little bit differently that could better impact our students. Ms. Franklin even touched on it as far as, just trying to transport kids from the mission and how that works. So I think that could be useful for us to look at a little bit more as a board, or at least maybe starting with DCAC. And I think that's all I had. Thank you, guys.
Ms. Schmidt.
So I want to start by saying, listening to the Impact Avenue presentation, honoring the United for a Successful School Year. It just reminds me what an amazing community we have. There are so many needs, so many families that have needs that are above and beyond what we might assume, and that there are organizations out there that will get together to help make sure that those are addressed. Ms. Mills said it well. She said it before I could, because I was raising my hand to tell you, is that when those kids are hungry and when they have nowhere to live, they can't pay attention in school. And so unfortunately, it does kind of become the school's issue, because we are here to help them learn. Fortunately, we're having some organizations embed within the schools to help make sure some of those needs are addressed so that they can be ready for it. My next two things are more questions. I had a parent reach out to me about Cox Channel 14, the TPS channel, stopping. I didn't know if anybody knew anything about that, or they asked me and I didn't know anything, so I said I would ask.
Thank you. So we'll look into it. I see Mr. Garrett is nodding his head, and Mr. Gowan, are you prepared to speak to the Cox channel?
There are some technical issues that we're having with it, and we are working with our vendors to try to get those solved. But at the moment, it is down.
Okay, so it is, do we have a estimated time on which it will be open tomorrow?
I don't yet have an estimate. I would love for it to be tomorrow, but I do not think it will be.
So, one of the things, and honestly, I didn't know that it was down. As we look at that estimated time frame from whatever vendor, if we can't get it up, Friday is the community news. Just letting our families know on our end, we'll just do that through social media, community news, that at this time we have technical difficulties, but anticipating with order.
So that should make you feel good. There's obviously people out there that are paying attention,
That are
right?
watching. They really are. We tend to update it. So thank you for sharing that.
And then my second question, which might be a work session, is I want to know how as a district we prioritize or come up with improvements that need to be made at the school facilities. You know, does that typically come from the principals of the schools? Is it something that LR and his infinite wisdom and expertise identifies? Just having some understanding around how some of that works.
Operationally and, okay. Yeah, and you know, it's perfect timing because Mr. Seitz, I believe, is down for the October board meeting. Perhaps maybe the next board meeting, Mr. Robbins. This time last year, he presented, we were just going over the board agendas from last year. So I think it's the October board meeting, he does major maintenance updates. So when he does that, we'll just fold into that also the presentation of how did he get that list and where did he get it from? And then how all year that comes up. So we'll add it to as a portion of that at the October meeting.
That'd be great. I just know that we've talked, you know, about equity across east side to west side. And, you know, I know that, you know, you walk in some schools and it's a very different experience than others. So I just want to make sure that, you know, everybody's getting their fair shake. Thanks.
Ms. Stewart Campbell.
All right, I'm going to talk about committee meetings and what we discussed, some of what we discussed in policy committee and also the equity council. So our policy committee, which is led by our attorney, Ms. Whiteman. So we met on August 25th and we looked at revisions to communicable diseases, immunizations, screenings, and that was last reviewed in 2018. Basically, it was just updating some of the language. But more interesting, we looked at the policy related to intent to address the board, everybody's public comment. And we had an interesting conversation about, do we extend it to up to 5 minutes, like some school districts do? And in the end, we thought it best to keep it at 3. However, add the language that so that our president will say for them, like if they're still talking, the 3 minutes are up, that our president will say that they can provide a summary sentence, how long that sentence or short sentence will be, but also to remind them that they can email their full comments to all. Everything. So that happened. Equity Council, which is co-chaired by Dr. Anderson and Dr. Davis. So we met for the first time this year, and there were some new faces. And let's see, each school that's represented, or a person that represents like a community member, we were all encouraged to reflect on what our school or entity is doing to promote equity. And so, and also, let's see, people were encouraged to create their own equity council, like even at the, you know, at the elementary level, which includes students, not just staff. So I thought that was some good stuff. Okay, and then we talked about future focus. So I'm really looking forward to our September 23rd Equity Council meeting because Dr. Mejia, in her new position, specifically talking about the Ukrainian students into our community. And on October 27th, Mr. Tatum, Ms. Foster and Mr. Palmer from College Prep are going to be addressing that. So we're going to be talking about that on October 27th. And then on November 10th, visiting the Shawnee County JDC. And then future meetings. Happening committee meetings. Over to you, Madam President.
Thank you. I had a few reports to make. KASB met, the legislative committee met on Saturday. So we spent most of Saturday discussing our legislative agenda. And as we meet again on the 17th, and as we meet and finalize that, I will be bringing that to the board for approval Every board in the state will have an approval situation. So I will bring that along. I was able to visit with many of our district board members across the state, and it was just really fascinating, the challenges that they have. And so those are some of the things that we can discuss at some time. Sheldon Policy Committee had some carryover money, and the policy committee voted to capture that money and carry it over. And our first committee meeting will be in September, I think next week. I want to remind our board that each person has a month on the DCAC meeting, and our first one is Mr. Munoz, and then our second one is Ms. Schmidt. And be sure and check that calendar so that you're there to address those. I saw on our consent agenda, we are receiving some money for test strategies from a grant for COVID and strep. And I was wondering if we could maybe have a presentation on the strategies that they come up with and the plan that they come up with when that occurs to be presented. And I wanted to thank all of our grant writing team for securing the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant in the amount of $100,000 to 3 of our sites. Quincy, Robinson, and Chase received that grant money. So I really appreciate, we heard of other grant writing tonight and what that does for our district to help educate our students. The last thing I wanted to bring up was Miss Anderson, who was a former para in our district, was highlighted on WIBW. She works at Whitson, and she has completed her teaching degree, and she has her own classroom now. When we talk about grow our own, I was at McEachran and got to see Miss Gavin, who has completed that same degree, and just the principals bragging on how excellent they are. And I see so many excellent paraprofessionals in our district that I hope will take up that same gauntlet to get their degree and touch our students' lives even more. But I wanted to congratulate those 2 ladies, and I'm sure I'll stumble across a few more. So it's a way to grow our own, to reward excellence for students, and we really appreciate them. And if there's nothing else in business tonight, I will adjourn the meeting.